Welcome back to another episode of Smooth Brain EDH, where the smoothest plays with the biggest brains. This week, we're showing off some of the new commanders from Spider-Man, so let's see what our players brewed up for us. First up is Sam on Miles Morales / Ultimate Spider-Man. This Naya deck focuses around +1 counters and legendary creatures, using Spider-Man to double up counters and grow Sam's board to smash into opponents. Next up is Tanner on Anti-Venom, Horrifying Healer. This mono-white deck is a Voltron deck, powering up Anti-Venom to beat down opponents, and using the cast trigger to get a value card back as well. Third is Chandler on Eddie Brock / Venom Lethal Protector. This Jund deck is a Reanimator deck, reanimating powerful threats from the yard and using Venom to sacrifice them to draw cards and cheat even more threats into play. Last is Jason on Wraith Vicious Vigilante. This Azorius deck is a Voltron deck. Kinda makes sense with an unblockable double striking creature in the command zone. Power up, swing at your opponents. It kills people, you know how it goes. We're about to hop right into the game. If you enjoyed the video, please go ahead and give it a like and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to further support the channel, please consider becoming a YouTube member. We have links to our social media pages, our free public Discord server, and the deck list in the description. We're partnered with Dragon Shield. Check out our affiliate link in the description if you're looking to pick up any sleeves, deck boxes, or playmats, and use code SMOOTH5 at checkout for 5% off your order. Now, onto the gameplay.
Looks like Chandler wins the die roll. He'll start off with Yavimaya into Ignoble Hierarch, and he'll pass to Sam. Sam will play a Wooded Foothills, and I know for a fact Sam is a silly guy, and I also know for a fact he's going to fetch at some random time, so I'm going to save us all the trouble and let you know he'll fetch for a Lush Portico, and the Surveil stays on top sometime before his next turn. So let's move to Tanner's turn now, where he'll play a Plains into Land Tax. See, yeah, this is when Sam fetches. What a goober. But I love that guy. He's cool. Anyways, let's move to Jason's turn now, where he'll play Sea of Clouds into Sigarda's Aid, and then he'll pass to Chandler. And Chandler will open the Build a Bayou Workshop with an Urborg, then he'll tap for 3 and cast Parker Luck, and then he'll sacrifice his Ignoble Hierarch to free cast a Flare of Cultivation, and this will get 2 mountains. Chandler will then pass the turn, and on end step there is a Parker Luck trigger. The 2 target players are Sam and himself. Sam will flip into Romantic Rendezvous, and Chandler hits the Great Hinge. Oh no. Sam loses 9 life, and Chandler loses 2. Alright, well after that, the turn is passed to Sam, and he'll play a Plains, then cast Nature's Lore. This will get him his Jetmir's Garden, and then the turn is passed to Tanner, who definitely has a land tax trigger. This is the only time he accepts it, and he'll get 2 basic Plains. He'll then play a Plains as land for turn, then tap for 2 and cast Sword of the Animist, and pass to Jason. Jason will start his turn off with Adakar Waste, then he'll cast his Azorius Signet, and then pass to Chandler, who will play a basic mountain as land for turn, then he'll tap for 3 and cast Eddie Spaghetti, and on ETB, Ignoble Hierarch is returned to the battlefield. Then the turn is passed. There's a Parker Luck trigger, he targets Jason this time, and they'll both reveal lands. Now let's move to Sam's turn. He'll start off with an Arid Mesa, and he fetches with it on Tanner's draw step for a Canopy Vista, but that happens in the future, so for now he'll cast Reiki, History of Kamigawa, and pass. On Tanner's turn, he'll play another Plains, and then cast a Smuggler's Share, and pass to Jason. And Jason will start his turn off by casting Wraith. Then he'll play a Meticulous Archive. Surveil stays on top, then he'll pass the turn. Chandler will play that basic Swamp that we saw, and then he'll move to combat and hit Jason for 4 because of Exalted. And now that he's got a 4/4 post-combat, Chandler taps for 5 to cast the Great Hinge, and then he'll pass to Sam. On end step, Parker Luck will trigger, and he targets Tanner this time, sharing the love. Chandler reveals another land, Tanner reveals Defense Grid, so Chandler loses 2. Alright, let's move to Sam's turn, where he'll start by casting Innkeeper's Talent. He'll then pass the turn, and when he moves through combat, Reiki gets a counter. On to Tanner's turn. He decides that Chandler's getting too much incremental value. He'll start by playing a Plains, and then he'll cast Witch Enchanter. Goodbye, Great Hinge. Chandler does gain 2 before it goes, then the turn is passed to Jason, and he'll play a Plains. Then he'll move to combat and swing Wraith over at Tanner, and no blocks are declared. Jason's got a couple things to flash in, starting with Staggering Insight, and then a Commander's Plate. Alright, that thing is already a 5/5 double striker. When everything is said and done, Tanner takes 10 Commander, and Jason will draw 2 cards. Post-combat, Jason will cast a Knight of the White Orchid, and then he'll pass the turn, and Chandler stays on instep and says to Sam and Tanner, okay, I can deal with something that's not Wraith, what should I hit? And Survey says the Commander's Plate. So Chandler will tap his mountain for a green, thank you Yavimaya, and he'll channel a Beseiju to destroy it. So goodbye Commander's Plate, and Jason goes and gets a tapped Hollowed Fountain. Tanner also draws on instep, and then we move to Chandler's turn. He plays a Swamp, and then he'll cast a Kodama's Reach. This will get him 2 forests. Then he'll cast Haywire Might, and he forgets this thing gains life the entire game. Alright, on end step, Parker Luck will target him and Sam. But in response, Sam flashes in Spectacular Spider-Man, and he'll draw a card off Reiki. Then Sam reveals Generous Gift and Chandler Dictate of Erebos. So Sam loses 5 and Chandler 3. Poor Sam, he really does have Parker luck. And unfortunately, Tanner forgets to make a treasure off his smuggler's share. Alright, well, now on Sam's turn, he'll play a Fabled Passage. Then he'll tap for 4 and cast Annie Joins Up. He draws a card upon casting it, and now I understand why he voted for Commander's Plate to go, because when it ETBs, it deals 5 damage to Wraith. After this, Sam will fetch for a basic Plains with his Fabled Passage, and then thanks to Yavimaya, he's able to tap it for a green to upgrade his talent. So now permanents with counters have Ward 1. Sam will then pass the turn, and as he moves through combat, Reiki gets another counter, and then on end step, Tanner remembers to draw a card off Smuggler's Share, but again forgets the treasure from the Fabled Passage. Tanner then asks Chandler, "Hey buddy, if I swing this Witch Enchanter at you, will you block it so I can reanimate it?" And Chandler says, "Yeah, as long as it doesn't hit anything of mine," and Tanner says, "Absolutely, here it comes." And Chandler blocks it with Eddie Brock, so it dies. Then post-combat, Tanner will cast Anti-Venom, and Witch Enchanter hits the field again, and it'll blow up Annie Joins Up. The turn is then passed to Jason, and he'll play Flooded Strand and fetch with it. You better believe Tanner forgets the treasure again. This finds a basic island, and then Wraith is recast, and then the turn is passed to Chandler, where he plays another forest, and then he'll jam a Noxious Gear Hulk. On ETB, he'll destroy Tanner's Anti-Venom and gain 5 life. The turn is then passed, and Parker Luck flips Chandler into a Verdant Catacombs, and Jason clouds, so Chandler loses 2. Let's move to Sam's turn now, where he'll start off with a Romantic Rendezvous. Discarded card is Landing Zone, and he'll draw 2. He'll then cast an Arwen and draw a card. Then he'll move to combat, and Arwen gets a counter. Spider-Man is then swung over at Jason, and Sam will pay 1 to give it flying, so Jason just has to take the 3. Then the turn is passed to Tanner, who draws on Sam's end step. After this, Tanner will play a basic Plains, then he'll cast a Stoneforge Mystic. This will get him a Hammer of Nazan, which he will cast, and it equips to Witch Enchanter. Then he'll pass to Jason, who starts off with Sword. It auto-equips to Wraith. He'll then play a Plains and cast Sea Loud, Midgar Mercenary, and this will tutor him a Sword of Fire and Ice. Jason will then move to combat and swing Wraith over at Chandler. Chandler decides to respond to this by activating and sacrificing Haywire Might to exile the Buster Sword. So it is gone, but Jason will still flash in Sword of Fire and Ice, and it auto-equips to Wraith, then Chandler takes 6 command damage. And upon double strike connecting, Jason will draw 2, then 2 damage is pointed at Arwen and Stoneforge Mystic, killing them. And he does pay the Ward 1 for Arwen. The turn is then passed to Chandler, and Tanner draws on end step. Chandler will then play a Wastewood Verge, then he'll pay 6 mana to flip Eddie Brock into Venom, Lethal Protector. And then Chandler immediately moves into combat, and Venom is swung over at Jason. There are 2 attack triggers, Exalted and Venoms, and Venom will sacrifice the Noxious Gear Hulk. This lets Chandler draw 6 cards, and then put a permanent with mana value 6 or less onto the battlefield. It's going to be that Dictate of Erebos. Jason will then take 6 command damage, and then post-combat, Chandler will cast the Soul Stone. He'll then cast Altar of Dementia, oh great, a sack outlet, and then it's followed up with Birds of Paradise. Moving to end step, Parker Luck will flip Agent Venom for Chandler and Ameria for Tanner, so Tanner loses 3 life. Chandler then has to discard 2 lands on cleanup, and then we'll move to Sam's turn, where he immediately Generous Gifts the Dictate of Erebos. And Chandler just decides to sacrifice his entire board to Altar of Dementia. This will make Jason mill 5 cards, and then each of his opponents will have to sacrifice 3 creatures. And unfortunately for Jason, this hits both of his graveyard recursion cards, Forge Anew and Mantle of the Ancients. The Generous Gift will then resolve, so Chandler gets a 3/3, then Sam will cast Anim Pakal and pass the turn to Tanner. And upon moving through combat, Pakal gets a counter. Now on Tanner's turn, he'll play a Plains and then cast his own Spectacular Spider-Man. He'll then cast and equip Commander's Plate to this Spider-Man, and then he'll do the same thing with a Champion's Helm. Then the turn is passed to Jason, who will play another basic Plains, and then he'll tap for 7 to recast Wraith. He'll pass, and Chandler plays a Spire Garden, and then he sits there for a while and contemplates the legitimacy of going ahead and harnessing the Soul Stone. He'd be out of blockers, so almost completely shields down. The only thing he'd have would be that Infernal Grasp that he still has from his opening hand. But he decides to go ahead and do it. He'll exile the Beast token, and the Soul Stone is now harnessed. Chandler will then pass the turn, and on end step, he targets himself and Jason with Parker Luck. They both reveal 4 mana value, Sneak Attack, and Witch Enchanter, and then we'll move to Sam's turn, where he will immediately slam Ultimate Spider-Man. He'll then move to combat, and Ultimate Spider-Man gets a counter, and then he'll turn everything sideways at Chandler. Attack triggers. He'll double counters first, and then Anim Pakal gets a 3rd counter, and he makes 3 1/1 gnomes. They go over at Jason, and Jason will block one of them. So on to damage. Chandler takes 10, 6 of which is Commander, and Jason will take 2. The turn is then passed to Tanner, and he'll play another Plains, and he'll just recast Anti-Venom. On ETB, he will reanimate Stoneforge Mystic, which tutors him a Tarian Soul Cleaver, which he will cast. And Hammer of Nazan will auto-equip it to Anti-Venom, and then the turn is passed to Jason. But Jason stops on end step to flash in Umezawa's Jite. And now that the Azorius deck is tapped out, Chandler takes this opportunity to ensure that he sees his next turn. He'll Infernal Grasp Wraith. And Tarian Soul Cleaver will give Anti-Venom a counter. So now when Jason moves to his turn, he'll just play a basic island and recast Wraith for 9 mana. And then he'll pass the turn to Chandler, who has a Harness Soulstone trigger on upkeep. The only thing he can return that's not a 1-drop is Noxious Gearhulk, so it hits the field and it'll destroy Anti-Venom again, and Chandler gains 6 life. After this, he'll cast a Sneak Attack, and then he'll tap for 5 to recast Eddie Brock, and on ETB, he gets Haywire Might back. The turn is then passed to Sam, and on end step, Parker Luck will trigger. Chandler targets Jason and himself. Chandler reveals Overgrown Tomb, and Jason Promise of Loyalty, so Chandler loses 5 life. Alright, now on Sam's turn, he'll start off with Rishkar's Expertise. He'll draw 6 cards. And then his free cast will be Tifa, Martial Artist. Spooky. He'll then move to combat, and Anim Pakal gets another counter. He'll then swing Anim and Ultimate Spider-Man at Chandler again. Attack triggers, he'll double counters first, and then Anim Pakal gets her 9th counter, and he'll make 9 gnomes, tapped and attacking Jason. Before blocks, Chandler will activate Sneak Attack, and this will put in Protein Hulk. Then onto blocks, Jason will block a 1/1 and take 8. Then Protein Hulk blocks Ultimate Spider-Man, and Noxious Gearhulk blocks Anim Pakal, and they'll both die. There's a death trigger from the Hulk. Chandler gets to tutor a total mana value of 6 worth of creatures, and he gets Metamorphosis Fanatic, and this will bring Protein Hulk back to the battlefield. Post-combat, Sam shocks in a Stomping Ground. He'll then pass the turn, and on end step, Tanner draws a card off Smuggler's Share, and Sam discards 2 during his cleanup. On Tanner's turn, he'll play another Plains, and then he says Sam is scary. Here's a Light Minefield. After this, Spider-Man gets equipped with Tarian Soul Cleaver and the Sword of the Animist, and then he'll move to combat. He sends Spider-Man over at Jason. There's an attack trigger, and he'll get a basic to the battlefield tapped. And before damage, Jason will Stroke of Midnight the Champion's Helm, so that Spider-Man loses hexproof. Then the turn is passed to Jason, and he will immediately jam the Promise of Loyalty. Believe it or not, Chandler has responses. To begin, he'll sacrifice Haywire Might to exile Jason, sort of. Then he'll sacrifice both Eddie and Protein Hulk to mill Jason for 9, and the Protein Hulk has a death trigger. This finds Chandler an Anti-Causal Vestige to the battlefield. And then the promise will resolve. Chandler keeps his Lifelinker, Sam keeps Ultimate Spider-Man, Tanner keeps Spectacular Spider-Man, and Jason will obviously keep Wraith. They all have Vow counters and can't attack Jason, and Chandler has an Anti-Causal Vestige trigger. This will draw him a card, and he puts Junji the Midnight Sky onto the battlefield from his hand. Jason will then cast Bioorganic Carapace, Lost Jite, and All That Glitters, and they are all attached to Wraith. Jason will then move to combat and say, Tanner, die. And then upon actually counting the damage, Jason realizes Tanner dies in first strike damage, so he'll only draw 1 card from this. Lost Jite will also get a counter, and then Jason will pass the turn to Chandler, who stops on end step to sacrifice Junji and mill Jason for 5. This just gets Protein Hulk back to the battlefield, and Chandler loses 2. Then we move to his turn, and on upkeep, the Soulstone brings back Noxious Gearhulk again and kills Wraith. He'll then play Command Tower's land for turn, and then hard cast Venom for 10 mana. He'll then move to combat, but before he can swing, Jason will remove a counter from his Jite to untap a white land and path to exile Venom. Chandler will respond by sacking Venom to his altar to mill Jason for 5, and he does not put him in the command zone this time. He'll then move to combat and swing for 6 at Jason and 4 lifelink at Sam, and they both just take it. On to end step, Parker Luck time, Chandler and Sam are the targets, they both reveal forests. Then, still on end step, Sam will channel a Beseiju to get rid of Chandler's sneak attack. This finds Chandler an underground mortuary, and he will surveil a 6 to the graveyard. Now on to Sam's turn, he'll cast a Branching Evolution, and then he follows that up with a Venom Blast. Ultimate Spider-Man will get the counters, it'll be a total of 4, and then the target for the damage is Noxious Gearhulk. Chandler will respond by sacrificing it and having Sam mill 5, and even though it's gone, Spider-Man will still get the counters. Sam will then move to combat, Ultimate Spider-Man gets a counter, then he'll swing at Chandler, he can't swing at Jason, and counters get doubled. Before blocks, Chandler will sacrifice his Protein Hulk to have Jason mill 6, and then off of its death trigger, he will tutor a Coalstoke Gearhulk and a Ragavan to the battlefield. The Gearhulk will return Eddie Brock from his graveyard to the battlefield, which will then return Haywire Might from his graveyard to the battlefield. He'll then block with Eddie Brock, and Ultimate Spider-Man's first strike saves him from the Death Touch. And Chandler once again does not put Eddie in the command zone. The turn is then passed to Jason, and he'll start off with Witch Enchanter, and he says, "Alright Chandler, no more free sack outlet. Goodbye Altar." He'll then equip everything he has to the Witch Enchanter and pass the turn to Chandler. On upkeep, Noxious Gearhulk hits the field again. Chandler's pretty sure he can kill Jason this turn, and then as long as Sam doesn't find Trample, he'll kill Sam on his next turn. So, Witch Enchanter dies, and Chandler will gain 4 life. Chandler will then cast a Rhythm of the Wild, and then Agent Venom, and he enters with haste. Chandler will then turn everything sideways except for Noxious Gearhulk and Metamorphosis Fanatic at Jason for a total of 10 damage. But Jason responds by flashing in Deep Gnome Terramancer, and he'll block Agent Venom. This lets him live at 1! Then Ragavan Trigger exiles single combat, and Chandler makes a treasure. Then Chandler moves to end step, and this time off Parker Luck, Sam and Jason target each other. Jason reveals Champion's Helm, and Sam Halana and Elena. So Sam goes down to 15, and Jason dies from Parker Luck. Let's move to Sam's turn now, where he immediately taps for 6 and jams Spider-Man Miles Morales. That is the trample he needs on ETB. Each other creature gets 2 1/1 counters and gains trample. Chandler has no responses, so Sam moves to combat. Ultimate Spider-Man gets 2 counters, then he'll swing at Chandler. His counters get doubled, and Chandler gets absolutely eviscerated by command damage. So that makes Miles Morales and Sam the winners. Congratulations. Alright, welcome everybody to the end of the video. Did you enjoy it? I sure did. If you did or didn't, let us know down in the comments below. I know this new Spider-Man set has been pretty divisive for a lot of fans, so are you a fan of it? Are you not? Me, I grew up on the Raimi trilogy, so I'm really all for it, I'm not gonna lie. But I 100% understand the arguments against it as well. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a smooth day.